Welcome to the Facerollin review of Limbo.
Yeah.
That is all I have to say because I didn't actually play it.
Oh,
Um, so why don't you guys take it away and I'll ask stuff and things.
Okay, we can do that. Kelly, do you want to start or shall I?
you can go ahead. Go ahead and describe what Limbo is all about.
Sure. So Limbo is it's a very artistic game. Like that's kind of the thing. Like back when it came out in 2010, that was what was very striking about it. Where you play the silhouette of like a boy who is sort of lost in the woods. The beginning of the game definitely I would say heavily implies that you're dead. Since you wake up around like a pile, like a body, and there's like flies buzzing around. Uh, but you proceed to the right, and you encounter all sorts of strange things as you go. There's a little bit of a little bit of like puzzles, a little bit of platforming as you go along, but it never gets really crazy. Like there's no inventory system or anything like that. Everything you need to solve a problem is somewhere on the screen in front of you. It's just a matter of figuring out how those parts sort of work together. Uh, and uh, and yeah, and you go until
And
you reach the end.
it's very like basic, which is
Yeah.
great. You can just it seems very casual, but man, it is creepy as fuck, man.
Yeah.
I I would have probably tried to beat the game because I played it for about an hour and I got maybe 40% of the way through it. But damn, it freaked me the fuck out because
Really?
yeah, I'm really not good with the horror genre,
Oh,
and I think
that's true. I do remember playing the Sherlock Holmes Call of Cthulhu game in front of you, and I remember that creeping you out pretty heavily.
yeah, I just couldn't handle it because I think it's mostly because of the music, and I didn't want to play Limbo without the music because so much so much of the game is so intentionally done. Like you really get to
Yeah.
feel like the developers of this game really wanted you to have a specific experience when you were playing this. And so
Yep.
I didn't want to compromise that by turning off the music or playing like a Nicki Minaj in the background as I'm doing
That is
this.
that is exactly what I would have done, except with like real big fish.
Yeah, real big fish would be a nice little like injection of happiness to get past the any depressing mood.
Despite their
Yeah,
songs always being either really sad or angry.
Yeah, but you know what? They just sound so happy that it's like it's
Yeah,
hard to be upset about it.
yeah.
um, but yeah, the music I think is really wonderfully done, especially since the sound effects, like there really is very minimal music. It's just
Yeah.
very ambience like, and the sound effects are markedly louder than the
Oh
music.
God.
So once you die, it's just like a jolt, like you died and you
Yeah.
die a lot. Holy
It's true. I definitely remember the distinct sound that the spider makes when it walks. Like that really creeped me out the first time it showed up.
yeah.
You did see the spider, right? I seem to remember that being pretty early.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
The
Okay,
spider was
I've seen
like the
it.
beginning of I don't know if I could handle this game.
Yeah, I saw the spider and I was like, do I cry at it? That's what I'm usually doing with spiders in games.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I really enjoy the spider sequence just because of that moment where you're just completely helpless to it.
mhm.
When it's part of the game for you to be like wrapped up and cocooned in its web. And the whole time I was like, maybe this is a puzzle. Maybe I'm supposed to do something, and I'm like fumbling with the controls. But no, there's nothing you can do. It just wraps you up.
Yeah. And that sense of like you're because you really can't fight back against anything. You
Yep.
you have to use the environment to defeat whatever you're going against. And oftentimes, you're just running away from the giant spider that is going to stab you with your legs. Okay, I have to admit the stabbing animations are really well thought out, and
Yeah.
I think that the developers probably knew that you were going to die a lot.
Definitely. Yeah. All of the deaths are the animations and like the sound effects and everything they did for the death scenes is very well thought out.
Yeah.
Later in the game, there's like buzz saws and stuff, so your limbs like fly off, and it's a big old mess.
Wow,
Uh,
really? I am
yep.
glad I quit where I did. Holy
Uh,
shit.
and like the thing that's really impressive is like they do an excellent job of letting your imagination sort of fill in the gaps. because like since the game has that very minimal art style, when you jump in that saw blade, you don't actually see like blood and guts fly everywhere, but you can heavily infer it. You can heavily like feel it when you hear that saw blade go and you see like a mess everywhere. And I think that's kind of neat.
Yeah, the game definitely gives you room to fill in the gaps, and especially I think the sound really contributes to
Hmm.
that because it's visually so minimalistic, you know.
Yep. Um,
Um,
one of the other things I really liked. So you didn't see much past. Did you see much past the forest area, Kelly?
I got to I just got out of the forest area. I got to the part where you change the weather to raining.
Yeah. So one of the things I think is really cool about the game that I didn't notice the first time I played it, because I played it back when it came out, but I played it again before we talked about it today. And one of the things I didn't notice my first time through is that you go from like a very sort of nature environment, and by the end of the game, you're in nothing but like an industrial area. So there's kind of this interesting theme of going from like nature to like man-made stuff, and then by the end you're in like a factory of some kind where there's like saw blades running around. Um, and I never noticed that before, but I think that's kind of a neat sort of thematic through line.
That is
Yeah,
just like Super Meat Boy.
you're right. It is. I hadn't thought of that. That is, yeah, you're absolutely right.
That is all I have to add to that. That
So,
is that is how I relate that to Binding of Isaac. 6 degrees of Edmund Macmillan.
so Trevor,
Yeah.
spoiler alert. Did you beat the game?
Oh yeah, I beat it. I went through it twice actually. Um,
Oh,
so
uh-huh.
go ahead.
I was just wondering what the ending was like
So
because, uh-huh.
this is maybe my one complaint about the game. So back when I played it in 2010, the game left a really sort of strong, like positive impression on me. Like I thought it was really clever, and the ending is extremely ambiguous. Um, and I thought that was a good thing in 2010, but having played it again, it actually kind of frustrated me. Um, so the way that the game ends is you're in that sort of like industrial area, you hit this switch and you crash through this like glass pane of some kind. You land in the forest back at the beginning of the game where you first woke up. You walk to the right, you see a girl who is sitting under a beam of light and she's kind of like sobbing quietly. She gets up, she turns and she sees you, and the game ends right there. Um, and
What?
so it's yeah, that's it. And so, like, I always thought that was kind of a really cool ending the first time I played it, but now it kind of frustrates me because I feel like there's not enough clues to kind of let you know, or at least give you like an idea of how to build what happened. Um, so my going theory on the game, having beat it, is I assumed one that you died in a car crash because of that imagery of you kind of flying through that glass pane at the end of the game. I thought that maybe you drowned because there's a heavy emphasis on water, kind of like rising and sort of filling the area. I assumed the girl was maybe your sister, and my assumption of the ending was that either one of two things. One, you're going through Limbo and you're trying to find her to help her like go on to the next world with you, or alternatively, she survived, and you seeing her crying over your grave is what helps you have the closure to move on.
Mm.
Those are sort of my two ideas on what happened. But that's based on just the loosest of facts and possibilities, um, which in 2010 I thought was really cool. But now it just kind of irritates me because I feel like there should be just maybe one or two more clues about what happened. Like, I'm fine with the player having to reach their own conclusions. I'm not okay with sort of leaving it intentionally ambiguous so that people have to talk about it without giving them sort of evidence and stuff to pull from.
I agree, and I feel like, you know, having that person, because when I heard you talk about it, I was like, oh, they're in limbo because at the end they find that girl and then they live happily ever after, that sort of
Nope.
thing. And I felt like, that sort of thing is sort of tried. But I'm really surprised that they didn't just have him crash through the window, land in the same spot, and then he kind of goes unconscious and then wakes up and then you're at the beginning again, because that's, you know,
Yeah.
kind of the definition of limbo, you know.
Right. And so that's one of the interpretations that a lot of people have, is that the game's called Limbo because you're constantly doing it over and over again.
Uh-huh.
Because when you go to the start screen again, there's two bodies on the ground and there's like flies buzzing, or at least that's kind of what it looks like.
Mhm.
And then when you hit start new game, you're immediately back at the start of the area, and the game is constantly looping. So some people think that you're just doing everything over and over and over again.
Well, at the end of the game, aren't you back at the beginning?
At the end of the game, you're back at the beginning.
So you are.
But yeah, like I said, I feel like maybe it's ambiguous to the point of being detrimental. And the creator has said that he has an ending in mind, and that some people online who have posted their theories have gotten like scary close to what he assumes it to be, but he's refused to ever talk about what his ideas are. And I feel like there should just be a few more things in the game to kind of give players stuff to draw from to have an idea of what the ending means to them.
I don't know. I feel like at the end of the day, you should really be able to share what the ending meant for you when you created the game, and
Right.
that not sharing it is kind of a cop-out of
Yes.
your creative.
Especially 4 years later.
Yeah.
After 4 years, maybe tell people.
Punch the creator in the dick.
And so there's one other thing that really frustrated me, because I didn't do this the first time I played Limbo, but there's these little secret hidden eggs that you can find.
Yeah, uh-huh.
If you find all of them, there's a little path that is normally closed that will be open when you get there the next time you go through the game.
Oh, whoa.
I did all that hoping that it would give me like more story or more stuff to draw from. Instead, it's just a really difficult, like challenging area that just dumps you out right before the ending of the game. So it doesn't actually like fill in any holes in the plot. It's just like a really challenging series of puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, it's a dark room with a little swinging light that you have to use to kind of figure out where to go.
That is creepy as fuck, dude.
Yeah, it's cool. Once you get past the little swinging light area, then there's like a welding tool that's like kind of going up and down, and the sparks provide light, so you have to use the sparks to figure out what to do. And then the final part of the puzzle is this giant-ass saw blade that goes really slow in one direction and then goes really fast in the other, so you have to time your jumps and your movements around that giant saw blade.
Wow.
But like that doesn't actually lead to anything super substantial, which was kind of a bummer. I was hoping I'd get like a little bit more, little tiny morsel of story, even if it was just one tiny little scene to kind of like give me more detail. But instead, once you reach the end of that little sequence, it just puts you right back to in front of the last puzzle before you finish the game.
Man, I am like still stuck on the story now. Like if you wake up dead, right? Like let's
Right.
just pretend that all the gameplay is just for story, you know, and you end up with this girl. You crash through a window at the end. You're going from nature to industrialization.
Yep.
And it seems like why have so many things kill you all the time? You know, is this like a some sort of allegory for growing up? Like you.
Some people, so that's another theory that people have, is that it has to do with the fears that you have growing up. This was actually one of the more interesting theories. I didn't come up with this one on my own. I read this one. But it's a really cool idea, because at the start of the game, right, the stuff that you're afraid of is like spiders.
Yeah.
Right? At the end of the game, when you're in that industrial area, right, so that might be kind of symbolic of like your fear of being stuck as like an industrial slave.
Mm-hmm.
And to support that theory, near the end of the game, you actually encounter these enemies that are like little brain slugs that actually take control of your body.
Mm-hmm.
And during those sequences of the game, you have no more control over anything except your jumping, and you just have to like kind of survive long enough to like find these things that'll eat the brain slug. But that kind of enemy, I think, is symbolic of being a corporate slave, of having this thing that's just controlling you, and you don't have any more agency over your own life.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like a lot of symbolic stuff going on in Limbo that I think is super cool, and a lot of people have drawn from, and it's given people a lot to talk about. And yeah, like that theory, that idea of it being symbolic of like the passage through life, I think is kind of neat.
Then why have that person in the light, at the end be gendered, like like, why have it be a girl specifically? Is it to symbolize love? Is it to symbolize hope?
Um,
Or
I can't say why it's gendered. I don't know why it's specifically a girl. I do think that one of the major themes in Limbo is loneliness, right? Is a lack of companionship. Nothing in Limbo is helping you. Everything is trying to kill you. And
yeah,
so at the end of the game, you finally see, or at least make contact with the one thing that is trustworthy, is like a friend, and that's where it ends. So I think that was why that ending is sort of framed the way it is because that's when you're finally ending the cycle of just everything trying to murder you.
but
Uh,
you don't know what happens afterwards. She could
that's
like
true.
completely murder him, you know?
It could be the girl from the ring. I don't know.
Oh, jeez. That game legitimately became creepier for me.
So yeah, like my final feelings on Limbo after playing it again is like I thought it was super impressive in 2010. It didn't leave quite the same resonance with me this time through. I think because there's been like back when it came out in 2010, it was very like revolutionary. Like there weren't a lot of games that I could point to and say this is art. Like this is something that I would definitely call art. And Limbo is definitely one of the games I would point to as like more of an artistic expression than just a game. But now, in today's day and age, I feel like there's a lot of games that are like that, and I think Limbo doesn't quite stand out in the same way it used to.
Yeah,
Um,
I would agree.
but I think it's still sort of historically important because prior to Limbo, I don't feel like there were a lot of games like it.
And I had fun playing the game while I wasn't being creeped the hell out. Like it was very creative in the solutions you had to
Yeah,
come up with. I mean, some of them were kind of like kind of hard to figure out. You don't get a lot of clues as to like
it's true.
what
You
you need
don't.
to do for the next step. But I think that it was it was well paced enough where given time you could figure out what the next thing to do, and also with a lot of dying.
Yeah, I was reading a little bit about the development of the game, and I guess originally they had like an inventory with like items that you had to carry around, and I think it was a good move on their part to get rid of that and just
I
give
agree.
give the player everything they need on the screen. I think that's a good move. Um, the only time I ever got frustrated with the mechanics is when I could figure out what to do and I just couldn't execute it.
Yeah.
Um, there were a few times, especially near the end of the game in that like industrial area, where I would figure out the puzzle, but then it would either take me a really long time to set up all the stuff I needed to do to solve it, or alternatively, the kid would kind of get like hung up on stuff every now and then, and I would get killed by a saw blade when I already knew what to do. And so those things were a little frustrating, but they weren't like horribly detrimental. I just start over again and try over.
Mhm. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed the game. I don't think I would play it. Uh, yeah, because it really freaked me out. But to anyone who enjoys, puzzle games or platformers, and who aren't necessarily gamers per
Mhm.
se. Like this was recommended to me by my friend from art school who never plays games, and she
Oh wow.
loved this game. Yeah. Um, and so I feel like because it's so um, like it's so pared down, there isn't a lot of like extra stuff on top of the actual gameplay. It's a
That's true.
great way to introduce people who aren't in games to gaming in a really creative and engaging way.
Hmm.
Just like not to people who are freaked out by things easily.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say that like when if you play Limbo, there's not a lot of other things out there that are like it. Like in terms of just like because it's so artistically driven, it's a very unique thing to experience.
hmm And yeah, back
Cool.
of the box quote
Yeah. What's
Yeah,
for
your?
Caps, how do you feel about Limbo?
It's the best game I've never played.
That's gonna be a hard quote to top.
uh, my quote would be "fuck spiders."
Fun for the whole family. 10 out of 10.
Fuck spiders, but don't fuck spiders.
Jolly good time.
Yep.
I'm walking on sunshine.
Whoa.
Yeah, that should be the trailer to the game.
Podcast. Whoa.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good.